when it comes to pornography and sexual sin, remember that is the spirit of the age. That one is the spirit of the age. When I said there's a message that I wanted to preach, that I'll preach on the youth, it's a message that is completely dedicated to that. But I'll just give a snippet, a synopsis of it. Sexual sin, porn, which emanates from the Greek word porneia, it's mentioned over 28 times in the Bible. It's not something that is starting now. It started way back. Its mentioning by word started AD 70. Where we had, I don't know if you have heard of Pompeii. The city of Pompeii, which was under Roman rule, was the first one which started having graphical representations of sexual sin, which now translate to pornography, which is porneia graphics. In other words, a graphic representation of sexual activities. But this is just in terms of recording and history. It actually starts back in the Garden of Eden. Sexual sin is one sin that has got different names and connotations. You can call it fornication. If it changes, it's called adultery. If it changes, it's called transgenderism. If it changes, it's called homosexuality. If it changes, it's called all the letters of the alphabet. L, B, G, T, Q, X, Y, Z. It is also called rape at some point in time. It is called infatuations, all bestiality. It's all speaking of one type of sin. It is a sin that emanates from lust. When Jesus Christ came, he brought it and he summarized it in lust. When a man looks upon a woman to lust after her, he has already committed the act. That statement removes the sin from the idea that men had always had, where it is reduced to a physical act. Because the challenge today goes beyond the physical act. Addiction is not something that starts in the physical. It's something that is like dopamine that affects your brain cells, that affects your spirit. So an addiction is not, when it then starts going into masturbation, it's going into fornication, physical fornication, it goes into adultery, physical adultery. All these other physical acts, they are a product of something that has happened spiritually. They're a product of something that has been impregnated in your womb. The gateway is audiovisual. The gateway is the things that you see and the things that you hear. So when we talk about visual, we're now talking about pictures on the internet. We're talking about pornography, videos. We're talking about hearing. We're talking about the type of music that you listen to. When you talk about hearing, we're talking about the type of voices that you hear. If you're a boy, the type of girl that you talk to, how she projects herself on the phone, and it is deposited into your spirit or your mind. You might not sleep with her physically, but you could be committing the same sin, or you might end up finding yourself in the problems and the challenges of sexual immorality, which is self-pleasure. Now, these things that you have asked me, because you have other questions, I will try to summarize them. They are habitual behavioral sins. They are habitual behavioral sins. They are not sins that you find yourself just doing. No. It is something that starts slow. You behave yourself into doing them. There's no one who said their phone was locked and all of a sudden a video of pornography started playing. No. You had to use data. You had to Google their website. You had to find the people. You have to search the type of porn. And they told me now there's so much different types of porn until there is people sleeping with trees. this is an area where you behave yourself, but it's a bottomless pit. It's a bottomless pit. It starts as lasting after one person. It goes to say, but I'm tired of this category. I want to move to this other category. It is what leads to perversion eventually. People who suffer with these sexual behavioral problems a lot in their youth and do not overcome it, they usually carry that demon into their marriage, because marriage is not a cure for lust. So how then, pastor, do I overcome? Is usually the question that I get. I've seen a lot of young people, they come and confess and come back and confess and come back and confess, and they end up being defeated. And so when they are defeated because they continuously confess, they blame two things. They either blame themselves to start feeling like maybe I'm serpent seed because I cannot overcome this, or they blame the person they are confessing to say maybe the prayers of the pastor are not powerful enough to deliver me out of this. But the solution is not just in confession, because I don't want to eliminate confession. Confession brings cleansing, and cleansing commissioning. So confession must be done. But here is how you confess when you deal with these things. Brother Branham says it is like a rattlesnake. A rattlesnake is a snake that keeps biting. So it's one thing that if you come to the altar to deal with that demon, you must turn your back from it. You don't keep turning back. So if you have confessed it, and let's say the spirit tries to come upon you, because it is not yet possession, it's oppression. It's something that follows you. It waits for your depressed moments. It waits for your idle moments. That's why we're talking about redeeming time under stewardship. Brother Branham tells Billy Paul to say, when you wake up in the morning, get out of the bed. Why is Brother Branham telling Billy Paul to get out of the bed? Because he knows that an idle mind is the playground of the devil. The more he is going to linger in the bed without anything, if he has a phone, he's going to find himself watching naughty things. If he continues there, he's going to end up touching himself. And the devil now, using technology, there is algorithms. The algorithms, they follow. I was talking to a brother about cars. On the phone, we're talking about this car. I open my Facebook. What does Facebook do? It's now giving me adverts about cars. So even if you say maybe I've gone to a private place to search for pornography, these phones, there's no privacy. Even if it's written end-to-end encryption, there's no encryption there. There is no protection in sin. That is the devil's recipe to catch you. So what he then does using these algorithms, even if you are not on a pornographic website, whether you are now on your other social medias, I used to think Instagram is ugly. The young people told me that Twitter is worse. There's a side of Twitter where there's no news, where there's all these sexual things. So that means when you go on your Facebook, the kind of videos it starts suggesting you, they are not as hard as pornography, but they are soft pornography. So you find now, that's why I'm saying it's a rattlesnake. It's now something that is following you everywhere. So how do you deal with a rattlesnake? Brother Branham says you ignore. You must have the ability to ignore and to click. I think these things gives you opportunity to say, I don't want. It suggests, do you want to see videos like this? You can say, I don't want to see videos like this. When you do that, you are now using something that you behaved into. You cannot overcome it by just speaking about it. I want you to understand what I'm saying. If you behaved yourself into something, you must behave yourself out of it. You must behave. So as deliberate, even though unconscious, as you behaved yourself to be addicted, you must be deliberate in behaving yourself out of it. And when that's why I see people that go for, that wants to overcome drugs, there is rehabilitation. What is rehab? Rehab is a place of to undoing. They start activities and other behaviors that deal away with addiction. And with addiction, there is issues of withdrawal symptoms. So there's always things that will suggest, those are your withdrawal symptoms, that will suggest within your members to feel a craving for that. So when you have a craving for something, if even I think in the medical field they can say, maybe if this person, maybe they lack iron and they're always eating mud, maybe the mud that they're eating is not really good, they can end up suggesting maybe take activated charcoal. Do you see what I'm saying? So this desire, this craving, it cannot be done away with just saying, I'm praying for you, let the craving go away. No, it's there. It's in the flesh. Your flesh is a product of memory. My flesh is a product of memory. You see, we're talking with Pastor Ngwenya here. We talk about, you remember that time when we were young, when we were standing by the walls of Queen's Park, when we did this, so that means my relationship with him, the reason why we say we are friends and we have a strong friendship, that thing that we're calling friendship is a product of memory. Do you see what I'm saying? And if tomorrow we are not going to be friends, we have to behave ourselves out of everything that we behaved ourselves to become friends. That's when you say, we are no longer friends. Why? There's other things that has happened that has undone what happened to make us friends. So there must be other things that must happen in your life that must undo what made you to be addicted to sexual sin. So that means you must expose yourself more to the things of God, listening to the word. If you used to listen to worldly music, you listen to TED Exodus, you listen to message songs. There are also message songs that help nothing in your spirit, that just tickle your flesh, that draw you closer to your addictions. That's why you find there are songs, you can listen to a song of a message believer and you still go into doing your things. But there are message songs that you listen to where you feel, now I cannot do anything, I would rather just pray and sleep. Those are the ones that you need to listen to. If the environment that caused those things to happen is when you are just in a quiet space and you wake up, you find you cannot sleep and things like that, what do? Play a tape. Play it full blast. And if you're a person who has been overcome so much that there are people that are so overwhelmed that even while they are listening to a tape, that desire still comes. Then you move to the visual part. God has given us tools. The message is audio and visual. Now we have got animated tapes. You're watching your phone. You see, you are listening to the tape, you're watching your phone. Your mind is no longer thinking about those pictures. You do that until you sleep. That last thing that happens when you sleep, your brain lowers into a frequency where you were between the age of 0 to 7, where programming can take place. So the last thing that you sleep in becomes the thing that sort of gets filtered into your dreams. The first thing again in the morning becomes the thing that gets filtered. So if you have got intelligent phones where you can have those tapes on repeat, let it be on repeat. You are behaving yourself out of something. Before you know it, the day that you do not listen to a tape, you start feeling something is lacking. I've not done something that I always do. It's like me wearing a watch. I wear a watch all the time. I've behaved myself into wearing a watch. If I go to church and I've forgotten a watch, I feel naked. I've behaved myself into that. Do you see what I'm saying? So if, let's say tomorrow, a watch is not good for me, I must start wearing a plastic bangle. I cannot just start walking without it. You end up seeing me walking like this because I feel naked. I behaved myself. You have to behave yourself. So you look for things that benefit your soul and takes you from that habitual sin. Otherwise, you will blame yourself and you will not come out of it. There are married people that still go to the bathrooms and try to do some of these things even when they have their wives. And it borders towards perversion. because those gates, they keep opening up. Sexual immorality, especially self-pleasure, it goes both ways, girls and boys, and it's usually masked with girls because it's more embarrassing for them, so it's kept a secret. But where it usually leads, it leads to perversion. So you have to behave yourself out of it. That's my advice, Pastor.
Yeah, he has been mentioning that even after marriage, people have those things. It's not killed by marrying. It has to be killed by an experience with God. As he said, that you have to behave yourself out of that. The addiction must be broken by a deliberate, intentional something that you have the word of God. You make sure you absorb it until that thing is broken. He now mentions about even homosexuality. We just have 2 more questions. I'll give him all these so that we can summarize quickly. But since he has hit where most of the youths are held, I would just say, let him, you run over these ones, but he's going to drive there to set people free on this very one, because he says even sisters are affected, and you are dishonoring your body. The Bible talks about youthful lusts. So we want our young people to be free from those things, so that when you stand here singing for us, when you stand here playing music, when you stand with your testimony, you are living in purity. So homosexuality is now coming into the message, and if you are not careful as a young person, you marry someone who is a homosexual, and they are doing it for their parents to marry right, or they are doing it for the church to marry right. But then you will find that maybe your wife has a wife somewhere, or your husband has a husband. Rev, you can comment on those things.